Hello, welcome to this video where I'm going to be showing you exactly how I make these handmade journals. So they're really fun. As you can see, this is kind of a blank journal, although the pages are decorated. So this is what I'm going to start with, just putting together some different papers and collaging things together to give ourselves our own really unique blank journal, and it's a starting point that we can then create our own journal spreads on top of this, and it will be really personal. So let's just dive straight in. I don't know if you're like me, but I'm absolutely obsessed with collecting sketchbooks and journals. Every time I go to an art or craft shop, I just have to buy a new sketchbook, and I've got so many now that it seems a bit of a waste to just spend more money on another sketchbook. So what I've done is I've gone through and I've had a look at all my old sketchbooks. I've got loads of them that are half finished or half used, and there's still loads of blank pages, and they're really good quality paper. A lot of them are quite thick. They're art standard paper as well, and I've got a lot of these lying around, so it is the perfect thing to use. So I've just pulled out a selection of different colour, different weights, but yeah, different types of papers, and you can do this with anything. You could even use magazine papers. And yeah, I'm pulling these all together, and this is my starting point for my journal. So what I'm doing here is I'm deciding the size that I want my journal to be, and that's the first starting point. And that's the fun with this, is you can make this any size that you like. You can make it to your own personal preference. So I'm going to make like a tall, thin sketchbook. This is the exact size I'm going to create it. So it's a bit like a travel notebook size. And then I'm simply going to go through every single page and fold and measure off this first page that I created and make them all this size. So again, you don't need to do this. You could make them all different sizes. You could have a really creative, artsy, fun art journal that's got lots of different size pages in it. But I'm trying to be a bit neat here. So we're starting off with as many pages as I can at this big sort of travel size journal spread page. So I don't know if you noticed as well, I'm using my scissors, just the back of my scissors, to help with the crease as well. So I'm measuring out each page and then folding them so it's a nice crisp crease down the center. Then once I've folded it and cut them all, they're pretty much all ready. So already this looks like a sketchbook. It looks like a journal. And with all these little off-cut pieces that I trimmed off, they're actually the perfect size to add in little mini pages. So that's the sort of thing you could add quotes on top of, or just make little notes, or just have a little illustration that just breaks up these larger pages as we go through. And again, you can add them in wherever you like. It's completely up to you. And so this trim here as well at the top, I didn't want to cut it off because I actually really love the texture that it gives. And I'm just noticing with this brown craft paper that it's a really nice contrast. So I think what I'm going to do is stick these together, and then you've got the trim on both sides as well, and that contrast in the colour. So I'm just using my Pritt Stick glue, just a normal average glue, just to make sure that all that trim sticks down. But I'm also going to use my double-sided sticky tape as well, just because these are quite thick pages and I don't think this glue is going to hold it on its own. But I really want to make sure all of those little tabs on the trim all get stuck down. So I'm just making sure that the Pritt Stick glue is sticking to all of those. And then I'm just going to use this my double-sided tape, just a nice long big piece, and this is quite sturdy as well. It's quite strong stuff, so it's going to be perfect to really hold that in place. And again, I'm not doing this too precisely. I'm just kind of doing it intuitively, going in with how I feel and what I like the look of. So I've not really even measured this. I'm just going to eyeball it as well and then trim off any of the excess. So I just want to tap down every single little tab on the trim there, and then fold this piece over as well so that it fits really nicely, and it should be able to slide right in there as well. So now it's just a case of trimming off this large excess piece that's poking out, and we need to remeasure the length of our page as well, just to check that it fits into our journal. So I think because we've added this extra bit at the top, it's going to make the page a lot longer. So I'm simply going to lay it across the sketchbook and trim off any of the excess pieces. And again, just doing this by eye, and I'm thinking about how much of that craft section I want at the top, and then just trimming off the excess from there. I'm just trying to I just trim that twice because I wanted to make it a nice neat cut, and then by folding it inside the sketchbook again, I'm just going to trim off this top section, and then it should fit nice and neatly at the same size. And now we're ready to prep our pages. So already that's made the pages a little bit more interesting just by adding in the contrast together. But what I'm going to do now is pull out all of these blank white pages, and I'm going to paint them just to add a bit of colour, and it just makes them a little bit more interesting, and it gives them a little bit of a unique look as well. So this is where you can start to put your own personality onto the page. And I'm just going to use my water and my watercolours here, so nothing too fancy. I love working with watercolour, and I love that kind of almost pastel-y fluid feel that they create on the page. And it's going to be interesting to see how this works, because the different pages will pick up the paint in different ways, so that's going to add its own interesting textures and patterns anyway. So I'm kind of picking a bit of a colour theme here. I know that we've already got the blacks and craft paper browns in our sketchbook, so I'm trying to think about the colours that I want to add in as other background colours which are going to work together with that. So I'm using these sort of deep bluey colour here, bluey grey, and this sort of yellowy brown, and this beautiful olive green as well. So that's going to be my theme for all my painted backgrounds. And as you can see, I'm not being precious about this. I'm literally just throwing the colour onto the page, and this is it's really fun. It can look really messy, but yeah, this is just really about getting some colour down and breaking up all of that white space, because it can be quite intimidating. Sometimes when we start with a white blank page, it can be quite daunting, and it will stop us from that creative flow, and we sometimes don't even know where to start. So here we've got our lovely dried pages, and as you can see, just adding that splash of colour to it just makes it a bit more interesting and gives us a starting point. And now all of our pages are ready to assemble. So it's a case of just flicking through and deciding where you want to slot all of the pages in. Obviously I've got the craft pages, the black ones, and the coloured pages. And then I can kind of blend the spreads together by using any little off-cut pieces or scraps that I also painted, and I can tape these or glue these onto the adjacent page. So that's going to help us to create beautiful spreads that actually blend together. Another thing is that I've decided to cut up some of these coloured pages as well to create more of the smaller pages that we can then fit throughout the sketchbook as well. So again, just deciding where we want these to sit, and just playing around with how we think things are going to look. We're still going to collage a lot more ephemera and imagery onto these pages later on, so this isn't the end of the world, but yeah, this is where we can decide the order that we want our pages to go, and it starts to give it that overall feel of how it's going to look when it's finally put together. So I'm just adding in a few more colourful scraps, and then we're ready pretty much to attach our pages together. So I'm just trying to find the crease here, just trying to get all of our pages to line up, and then once I'm happy that they're all in the right place, I'm just using a clip here to hold them together. So hopefully that's going to keep them in place as we do our bookbinding. And I don't have a fancy bookbinding tool. I literally use a push pin, so it's like a tack or a pin that you'd use in a pin board, and this works perfectly fine for me. So I'm starting in the center of our journal, and I'm just wiggling the pin and pushing it through to create a little hole in the center. I've decided, because I've got these little mini pages throughout the book, that I'm just going to go around an inch spacing all the way along this center crease. So I'm just going to put a little hole about every inch along the book. So here you can see up close just tiny little holes, and I'm just making sure that they're all lining up so that we're ready to now stitch them. So I'm just going to pop my pin in this end just to make sure they're all lined up again. They're quite thick pages as well, so this can take a little bit of perseverance, but yeah, when they're all lined up and ready to go, we're ready to start stitching. And again, I just use normal sewing thread. I don't have any bookbinding thread, and what I usually do is when I thread the needle, I double up my thread so that it gives it that extra bit of strength. So I'm using the 2 threads that are going through at the same time, and I'm using I've measured twice the length of my journal, and I've added a little bit more just for extra, so that should be plenty to be going on with here. And then I usually start in the center when I'm bookbinding, but I'm discovering that the pages are so thick, I'm going to have to start here at the end and just work my way along all the way up to the top and then back again. So all I do is push the needle through so that it's gone through all of the pages right through to the back spine. I'm holding onto the little tail at the end, and then I'm pushing the needle back through the next hole. As you can see here, it's gone right the way through, and then I can pull it taut, pull that thread so that it's nice and tight. And I'm just going to carry on doing this, so holding onto this loose tail at the end so that we don't lose all the lovely stitching we've created, and just work my way all the way along the sketchbook. So again, pushing the needle all the way through, making sure it comes out of the other side, pulling it all the way through, and then threading it back in again. So it's quite a simple process really, and I do use my pin on occasion because the pages are so thick, just to give a little wiggle to make sure that all the pages are lining up with the holes to make it easier for the needle to go through. So that's a little tip. Then once you've gone right to the end, I give it a little tug to make sure that the stitching is really tight, and then I work my way back down again, back to where we started. And then once I get down here, I've decided that actually I want my knot to be on the outside. So I've pulled out the thread on that last hole, and I'm just stitching right through to the back, and then I'm adding a knot, and I've knotted at least 3 or 4 times there. So it's nice and tight as well. Make sure it's tight whilst you knot it. And then I'm just using some brown packing tape to cover up the spine here. So this is going to act in 2 ways. It covers up all that stitching so you can't see it. It makes it really nice and neat. And it's also protecting that little knot so that, again, it's not going to come undone. It shouldn't do anyway, but at least now it's got that extra protection from the tape. And there we have it. It's bound, and we're ready to move on to our next stage, which will be some junk journaling. I'm just going to double check that I'm happy with my pages, cut off any excess little bits that are poking out. You could trim right the way down the front edge of the journal as well to make all the pages the same size. And here, yeah, I've got this little piece that's poking out, but I quite like that, I've decided. So just having a flick through to see that I'm happy with my journal. So now that we've got our journal finished, now comes the really fun part. So I'm just pulling out loads of ephemera, loads of scraps, loads of magazine cuttings. There's all sorts of stuff here. And we're going to junk journal basically. So we're going to fill this, and I'm going to go through every single page and kind of layer things up. So already I've put something in there, and I love how this colour here corresponds to this colour over here. Do you see what I mean? So it's trying to create kind of a bit of chaotic balance, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to have fun with this and go through and just layer up each page. And this isn't finishing a page, this is just starting a page to give it like a really beautiful kind of base layer, and then when I come in later on to actually do my pages, I've got really gorgeous backgrounds on every single page to start working on. Okay, so this is not about thinking too much about the process, I'm just diving in. And yeah, one of my favorite things actually is like household magazines. This is a bathroom magazine, and it's quite a sort of satiny matte finish, and I just love the colors in here. Look at this, dark colors, you know, these greeny sort of, but they're quite dulled out as well. But yeah, beautiful neutrals. So these are great, look, working in here. So any of these would work really well actually. And look at that, just that in itself is absolutely gorgeous. So I'm just going to have fun with it. So let's dive in. And the way I like to add in all these little decorative details in the back is I use all of these magazine images. But I quite like the abstract look, so I'll usually pull out things that have got really beautiful texture, or that the colours blend together really beautifully and they create something quite interesting, but you can't really tell what it is, and then I'll use these scraps and layer those up together. So you're not necessarily seeing a motif or an image as such, although you could use something like flowers, like cutting out flowers and gluing them in. They'd be beautiful to decorate a page. But I'm really enjoying, as part of this process, the more abstract feel. And again, I'm trying to think about the colour theme of these sort of dark purpley blues, greys, blacks, and also these more beigey, almost olive green, and sort of crafty brown type colours. So this is what I've got in mind as I'm looking for scraps, and I'm just building up layers. And again, it's very intuitive. I'm just seeing what I think looks really pretty, and I'm not thinking about filling up the page at the moment. This is more about adding things usually around the edges, so around maybe the top or the bottom, and then later on I'll be able to add photographs or even drawings, things like that I can cut out and stick in, and they will become the main focus of the page. So at the moment what we're doing is building the background, so it just makes it a little bit more interesting than just having one sheet. And so here we are, this is the finished journal ready to use. So we've created all these gorgeous backgrounds here with our painted work, and then collaging in any scraps, you know, magazines, book pages, any little snippets of colour, and they just create really interesting backgrounds. And you can create different colour themes, you can add different elements, different textures, and it just adds a whole different dimension to your new little sketchbook or journal. And so now it's ready to use. Now you're ready to fill it with whatever you like. And one of my favourite things to do, and I will be showing you this in later videos, is to add in photos. So this is an example. You could add in a photograph, you could add in some stickers, things like this, and then you've still got the space here to do your written journaling. Another thing you could do is take a photograph of your card reading for the day, stick the photograph in there, and then write the message for your reading in. Can you see how you can make it a really visually pleasing, beautiful journal? You could also stick things in here, maybe add some words here, type some words up on the computer, print them out and stick those in, and make that its own like mantra page or affirmation page. So there's so many different choices, so many different ideas. Be creative and make it your own. That's the fun of this project, is it's a really, really personal journal. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm now going to show you actually how to make your own mini version of this as well. So we're using exactly the same principles as we did before. I'm using this small craft piece of paper. It was an offcut from one of our original pages, and then I'm just using some plain white paper for the inside. And what I've decided to do is, inspired by that sketchbook page that you saw a second ago, I'm going to just use this tea. So it's literally a tea bag with a bit of water, and I'm tea staining the pages instead of using paint, and it's giving it that rustic kind of oldie worldy look, and this is going to blend really well, I think, with the old book pages as well, which you'll have seen a second ago. So that's kind of the theme I'm going for. So I've just painted both sides with the tea, and then I've let the pages dry, and then once they're dry we can start to measure up the page size and cut up these 2 sheets. So I've literally just used 2 sheets of paper for this, so keeping it really simple, just a small simple sketchbook. And this way you can dedicate a certain project to just your one little book, and you can work your way through it. You could do a weekly project and fill it in a week. This is quite a fun, simple way of using a little mini sketchbook. So here I'm just drawing out the lines so that I have got the right size. I'm doing that on both sheets of paper, and I've left a little edge bit on both as well, just to cut off any excess white pieces that I might still have. So just going through and cutting out each page, and then just folding those in half as well. And so the pages are pretty much ready once we've done that, and we can start doing our book binding. So as you can see, they fit really, really nicely in underneath our cover. So I'm just going to go through and fold every single one and slot them all in so that we're ready to bind. Already it really looks like a book, doesn't it? So again, I'm using my push pin, and this time I'm just doing 3 holes. So I've got the center hole, which is where I'm going to start. So again, I thread my needle, I use the double thread, and I thread it right through the center from the inside out. Then I go to the top hole, and then I go to the bottom hole, and then back through the center again, and then both threads have come out of the center hole, so I tie a knot around that central piece of thread and then cut off the excess. And that's it, really simple. In that center page you can see the little knot that's left there, and yeah, really quick and easy project. So it's a really, really fun way to make your own sketchbook. And here's our final mini. Here we go, with these beautiful images that we've stuck in as well, stickers that have stuck in. So we've got beautiful backgrounds. I've stuck in lots of different ephemera, different scraps of paper, and bits of magazine cuttings, and then I stuck photographs in as well. And this is the sort of thing you could add words in, or you could make it completely visual. It's completely up to you, but this is one of the ways to use your journal. And obviously there's the blank pages. So here are our finished journals, all ready to start using. I hope you've really enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope it's inspired you to have a go at making your own little journals as well. So happy journaling, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!